السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear students, peace be upon you. Today, inshallah, we'll complete our lecture concerning the critical thinking skills. This is our course, Critical Thinking, and this is part 2 of lecture 4, CET Major Skills, and I am Dr. Hamid Saeed. Let's first of all summarize what we've discussed last lecture. We dealt with the logical arguments, and we stated that an argument is a set of premises supporting a conclusion. Simply, an argument is a set of premises supporting a conclusion. We said premises means مقدمات, conclusion means نتيجة. A proposition is any statement, claim, or proposal. So the premises are kind of proposition. The conclusion is too. Premises are the propositions from which the conclusion is drawn. They are the basis of the argument. And the conclusion itself is the proposition that is backed or supported by premises. In case of the logical argument, let's have a common categorical syllogism. This is when we say all A are B, this is called major premise, مقدمة كبرى. C is an A, this is called minor premise or مقدمة صغرى. Therefore, لذلك أو نقدر نستنتج C is a B. This is a conclusion. All of these three components comprise the argument, and this is called the logical argument. So simply, this argument consists of three components or three parts here. Two premises, one which is major, the other is minor, and the conclusion. And the premises, the two premises, are the basis of the conclusion, and the conclusion is a proposition which is supported or which is driven from the premises. So this is very simple like that. We have classical example which is all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. So the first one, this is major premise, minor premise, and conclusion. And we can derive this conclusion using the two premises like that. All men are mortal, and as long as Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. But what are the types of logical arguments? We have more than one type of logical arguments. The most famous ones are the deductive argument and the inductive argument. Deductive argument and inductive argument. This is استنباطية and this is استقرائية. But what's meant by deduction here? When we say all A are B, C is an A, therefore C is a B. This is the conclusion based upon the two premises. So we are going to do what? Just to draw a generalization. In this case, we are going to deduce something from the premises. We are deducing from these two premises that C is B. So we are moving from the general to the specific, from the general to the specific. But in case of the inductive argument, the opposite is true. We are moving from the specific to the general. Something like this. Suppose A is X and it is Y at the same time. B is X and it is Y at the same time. C is X and it is Y at the same time. So we have several premises here. These may be 3, 400, 1,000, etc. Then what is the conclusion here? As long as A is X and it is Y, B is X and it is Y, C is X and it is Y, therefore all X's are Y. This is the conclusion. You notice that we moved from the specific, this is a specific case, a specific case, a specific case, and we draw from all of these specific cases a general rule or a general law. So when we are moving from specific to general, so this is induction or inductive argument here. When we are moving from the general or the general laws or rules to deduce something according to these laws or rules, so we are moving from the general to specific, so this is deduction or istintaj. So we have at least two types of logical arguments, which are deductive argument and inductive argument. Let's deal with something called syllogism. And syllogism in Arabic means القياس المنطقي. But what's meant by syllogism? Syllogism is an argument, but this argument consists of three statements, two premises, and one conclusion. So syllogism usually, or syllogistic argument usually consists of three statements, two premises, and one conclusion. And this conclusion completely depends upon the premises. Okay, this is very important. And we will deal specifically with something called categorical syllogism. Categorical syllogism here. But what's meant by categorical syllogism? Categorical syllogism is a syllogism that consists of three categorical propositions. Then it contains three distinct terms. Three distinct terms means ثلاثة حدود متميزة عن بعضها, each of which appears in exactly two of the three propositions. Let's tackle this example. If we say all mammals have hair, consider this sentence as an English sentence. We can say that all mammals here is the subject or al-mubtada, and have hair, this is the predicate or al-khabar. Then the next one, all dogs are mammals. The same, this is the subject and this is the predicate. The same for the conclusion, all dogs have hair. So this is the subject and that is the predicate. But examine again, we can notice that this term is like that. So when we say all mammals have hair, all mammals have hair, all dogs are mammals, and therefore all dogs have hair. This is deductive argument and it is categorical one. Okay, let's move here. Again, this term have hair is called major term. Major term. Why? Because it appears as a predicate of the conclusion. So the predicate of the conclusion is the major term. The subject of the conclusion is the minor term. Then where is the middle term? It is there, here. Maybe the subject of the first and the predicate of the second premise. So we can notice that the conclusion only contains two of the three terms. Only of the three terms. This one and that one. But one of the terms, which is green, which is the middle term, is found only in the premises. This term, which is called the middle term, does not appear in the conclusion. This term, the middle term, does not appear in the conclusion. But both the major term and the minor term appear in the conclusion like that. So we can conclude the same. The predicate of the conclusion is the major term, the subject of the conclusion is the minor term, and the term which does not appear in the conclusion is the middle term. Let's tackle here the logical proposition. The logical proposition have to have something concerning quantity and quality. But what's meant by quantity and quality here? The adjectives such as all, no, every, some, all of these, among others, determine the quantity of the proposition. But the affirmation or the negation of the proposition or the statement, this determines the quality of the proposition or the statement. So we can know the propositions or the statements by using the quantity and the quality. So therefore, we have to distinguish between four logical possibilities. Four logical possibilities. This is from 2 by 2 equal 4. Let's have this classification. The first thing is called universal affirmation. Universal affirmation. When we say all S are P, all S are P, something like all humans are free, or all Egyptians are free. In this case, this sentence is in the affirmative form, so this is affirmation. And we use a word like all or every, so this is universal. So this is called universal affirmation because the sentence itself is in the affirmative form and we use universal words such as all or every. And this proposition is called A-type. A-type, why? This is derived from the Latin word affirmio, this letter. Affirmio means I affirm because it is affirmation like that. The next class is the universal negation. Universal negation because this proposition or this statement is in the negative form because we used no. And at the same time, the word no is universal. So it is called universal negation like this. And it is referred to as E. Why? This is from the Latin word nego. Nego means I deny. So this is A, universal affirmation, and this is A, universal negation. The next one or the third one is the particular affirmation. It is affirmation because it is in the affirmative form. The sentence itself, from the linguistic point of view, is in the affirmative form, not in the negative. So it is called affirmation. And it is particular because we used words some like some here. And some is particular. It is not universal like all or every. So it is called the particular affirmation, something like some SRP, some SRP. And it is called or referred to as I because of the word affirm you. But in this time, we take the letter I instead of the letter A here. The last class or category of logical proposition is the particular negation. Particular negation. It is negation because we say not here. It is in the negative form. So it is negation. And it is particular because we use the word some instead of all. So in general, if we used words like all, so this is universal. Or words like no, this is universal. But if we use words like some, so this is particular. Of the sentence is in the affirmative form, so it is affirmation. If it is in the negative form, it is in the negation like that. So these are the four combinations of quality and quantity of the logical propositions. They are referred to as A, E, I, O, and this is very important and will be dealt with afterwards. So there is something called the traditional square of opposition. Traditional square of opposition. This square is a diagram represents the relations between the basic categorical propositions. So this is just a diagram in the form of a square, and it represents the relations between the four basic categorical propositions. And the origin of this square can be traced to Aristotle. Aristotle, in fact, didn't draw any diagram, but afterwards, centuries after Aristotle, Apuleius and Boethius draw this square. Anyway, what about this square? It is a diagram like this. It is a square like this. Okay, approximately it is a square. At end, it indicates the relationship between the four types of proposition tackled before. This is A, E, I, and O. This is again A, E, I, and O. And we still remember, A means all S, all subjects are predicate. E means no subject or predicate. I means some S are predicate or some subject are predicate. O means some subject are not predicate. Let's deal with this square in some details. Examine this diagram again, and this is very important, and it is full of a lot of details like that. We can notice here this is A, this is A, E, I, and O. A means every or all S as B. We can use the word every or the word all. We can use the word is or even the word are, no problem. So every S as P. Here, the opposite is no S as P. Here, some S are P. The opposite is some S are not P. So we can notice that on the right hand here, this is negative, so this is negation, and this is negative, so this is negation. Why negative? Because we use the word no, and here we use the word not, so this is negation or negative. On the other hand, on the left side here, this is affirmative. Why? Because we use affirmative sentences here, not negative ones, because we say every S as P, this is affirmative. Some S are P, this is affirmative, not negative. So right hand we have the negative, the left hand we have the affirmative. Then what else? Here we say every S or all S are P, and we say no S as P, and this is universal terms here. But this is this top. So in the top side here we have the universal type. The particular is in the bottom like this. Why? Because we use some here and some there. So we have some and some. This is particular. Okay? But here we have every or all and no, and this is universal. So take care here when dealing with this square, because it is easy, no problem. Here we have the affirmative, here we have the negative, here we have the universal and particular. Then what about this corner? When we say this is universal affirmative, this one, okay, it is called A. Universal affirmative, this called A. Something like every S as P. Let's go to this side. This is universal negative, just to say no S as P, no S as P, no S as P, like this. Okay, let's move downwards. Just to say, this is particular affirmative, particular affirmative. Something like some S are P, some S are P. On the other hand, we have particular negation or particular negation here because this is negative. Just to say some S are not P. Okay, this is very easy, like that. Just to say this corner A, this universal affirmation. This corner E, this universal negation. This corner I, this is particular affirmation. This corner O, this is particular negation. Let's have some examples. Here, every S is P. Something like every human is free. Every human is free. This is universal affirmative or affirmation. Then the opposite is no human is free. No human is free. So there's a form E here. E. Then this is universal negation. Let's move again. This some humans are free. Some humans are free. This is particular affirmation. Particular affirmation. This some humans are not free. Some humans are not free. And this is particular negation again. Okay, this is very easy. But what about this T and F? T and F means true and false, or truth and falsity. Okay, this will be dealt with afterwards. So, even we can represent these using the Venn diagram, and this will be dealt with inshallah afterwards. How to represent these propositions using the Venn diagram, but this is the same square. But what are the relations here? Look again. This between A and O, there is some kind of contradiction. And between I and E, there is some kind of contradiction. So the relationship between A and O is contradiction. Between E and I is contradiction. Okay? Then, but what is the relation between A and E? The relation between A and E is contrary or contrariety. Contrariety. And the relation between I and O is subcontrarity. So we have here contrariety and the subcontrarity, because I is subcontrary to O and the O is subcontrary to I. Here A is subcontrary to E and the E is subcontrary to A, and the relationship itself is called contrariety. Here is subcontrarity. It's okay. So, but what about the relation between E and O, or between A and I, and vice versa? This from universal, here we are here universal, here is particular. So from universal to particular, this is called subalternation. Subalternation from universal to particular, it is called subalternation. But from particular to universal, it is called superalternation. Superalternation. So we have the same relationship between A and I. From the particular one to the universal, it is superalternation. But from the universal to the particular, it is subalternation. Okay, this is easy too. This square seems complicated, but it is not. It is very simple if you understand it easily, inshallah. So let's move to more details about these relationships between the four corners of the square. The first one is contradiction, and the contradictions means or happens when two statements are in contradiction if and only if they always have opposite truth values. What does that mean? It means that if proposition 1 is true, the other must be false. And if the other is false, the first must be true. So they are contradictory to each other. Let's have example. When we say all S are P, all S are P, something like all humans are free. All humans are free. Then some S are not P. All S are P, some S are not P. Here, some humans are not free. All humans are free, some humans are not free. These two propositions are contradictory in the meaning that if this is true, then this is false. If that is true, this is false. Why? Because they are contradictory to each other. So this is called contradiction. The same for this example. No S is P, like no human is free. And some S are P, some humans are free. No human is free if this is true, so this is false. And some humans are free if this is true, this is false. Why? Because they are contradictory to each other. And this is the first relationship between proposition, which is contradiction. And we noted that here this we have A is contradictory to O, and the E is contradictory to I, like that. The second relationship between propositions is contrariety. Contrariety. Two statements are contrary to each other if and only if they can both be false. Both can be false, but cannot both be true. Again, if they both can be false, but cannot both be true. It means that if one is true, the other must be false. If one is true, the other must be false. Why? Because both cannot be true, but both can be false. Let's have an example. If we say all S are P and no S as P, this is A and E. Here, all humans are free. No human is free. All humans are free. So, if this one, all humans are free, so this one must be false. If one is true, the other must be false. So, if this is true, if all humans are free, then no human is free, this is false. And both of them can be false. Both of them can be false. But both of them cannot be true at the same time. This is called contrariety. In Arabic, contrariety is translated into at-tadarub, and contradiction in Arabic is translated into at-tanaqud. So there's a difference between contradiction at-tanaqud and contrariety at-tadarub. Okay? And we noted that A is contrary to E and the E is contrary to A, like that. The third type of relationship between proposition is subcontrarity. Subcontrarity here. When two statements are subcontraries, it means that if and only if both can be true, but both cannot be false. Both can be true, but both cannot be false. What does that mean? Some S is P, this is I. No S is not P. No S is not P here. It means that both statements can be true. Some humans are free and no human is not free. Both can be true here. Some humans are free. No human is not free. Take care here. We have two negation here, no and not. So if we drop these together, then we have human is free. So this is the same. So both of them can be true, but both of them cannot be false. And if one is false, the other must be true. If one is false, if this is false, some humans are free. If this is false, the other one must be true. Okay? And vice versa. And we notice here that I is contrary to O, and O is contrary to I. There's a difference between contrary and contradictory. This is التناقض and التضارب, as we stated a moment ago. The fourth relationship is sub-implication, or something called sub-alternation. Sub-implication, implication means التضمن. Sub-alternation. So we have sub-implication or sub-alternation. What does that mean? The relationship between a universal and the particular statement. So these statements, in this case, one should be universal and the other should be particular. So this is the relationship between a universal and the particular statement, with the condition that they are of the same quality. The same quality. What does the word same quality mean? It means if one is affirmation, the second has to be affirmation too, and the opposite is true. So this is a relationship between a universal and the particular statement of the same quality, in which the truth of the universal necessitates the truth of the particular. Again, the truth of the universal necessitates the truth of the particular. What does that mean? It means that if the universal proposition is true, then the particular one is true too. If the universal is true, the particular one is true too. Let's have example. When we say all SRP, something like all humans are free. Some SRP, some humans are free. Yes, it goes logically like that. The first one, all humans, this is universal. The second one, some human, this is particular. Why? This is universal because we use the word all. And this is particular because we used the word some. And they are of the same quality, because this is affirmation and that is affirmation. Take care here. This is universal because we use the word all, and this is particular because we use the word some. So there's a relationship between universal and particular, and both are of the same quality because this is affirmation and that is affirmation. Then if we stated that all humans are free, then some humans are free. The truth of the universal necessitates the truth of the particular one. The opposite is true too. Let's have here. When we say no S as P, something like no human is free and some S are not P, some humans are not free. What about these two propositions or statements? This one is universal because we use the word no. And this one is particular because we use the word some. So this is universal and one particular. And both are of the same quality. Why? Because this is negation and that is negation too, because we use the negative form here, are not, and here we know. So this universal, that is particular. This is negation because we use the word no and we use the word not. The same. The truth of the universal, this one, if no human is free, so some humans are not free, as a sequence. The fifth relationship between propositions is the super implication. Super implications here, this is a relationship between universal and the particular statement of the same quality. But what is the difference between number 5 and number 4? In this case, the falsity of the particular necessitates the falsity of the universal. It means that if the particular proposition is false, then the universal proposition is false too. Let's have two examples. When we say some S are P, some S are P, some humans are free. All S are P. All humans are free. When we say some humans are free, this is what? This is particular and it is affirmation. This one, universal and affirmation. So we have particular affirmation, and universal affirmation. If the first one, this particular affirmation, is false, then the next one is false too. Okay, why? Because the particular necessitates the falsity of the universal. This is a particular and that is the universal. Another example here. When we say some humans are not free, some humans are not free, this is particular negation, particular negation. So we have here, no human is free. This is universal negation. So they are of the same quality, but the first is particular, the second is universal. If the first one is false, the second must be false too. So we have at least 5 types of relationships between qualities, between propositions, sorry. Let's go back to this diagram. So this is, again, A and E are contrary to each other. I and O are subcontrary to each other. A and O are contradictory to each other. E and I are contradictory to each other. Then we have subalternation and superalternation between E and O and between A and I. This is the summary and it is very simple, inshallah. Okay, let's go to another point in our lecture here. What is it? This is, what about the standard premise order? What are the standard order of premises in the logical argument? When we say all A are B, this is a major premise. C is an A, this is a minor premise. Therefore, C is a B, this is a conclusion. Okay, so what about the major term? The major term here is B. Why? Because it is the predicate of the conclusion. Where is the minor premise? The minor term is C. Why? Because it is the subject of the conclusion. So this is the major term, this is the minor term. What is the middle term? The middle term is A here. Why? Because it doesn't appear in the conclusion. Again, we stated this before. Then, we usually start with the major premise, followed by the minor premise, followed by the conclusion. But what is the major premise? It is the premise which contains the major term. So we have two premises. One of them, the first one I mean, includes or contains the major term. So we have to start with this in any argument. So the standard form of argument demands that the major premise always be listed first. Again, the standard form demands that the major premise always be listed first. So this one appears first. Why? Because this is a major premise. Why is it the major premise? Because it contains the major term. What is the major term? It is the term which appears as the predicate of the conclusion. I think this is easy, and this is for the sake of organization of arguments when argumentation. There's something else called mode and figure of syllogism. Mode and figure of syllogism. What's meant by mode and figure of syllogism? Mode and figure of syllogism are tools or devices that are used to determine if the syllogisms are valid or invalid. Valid means صادق, invalid means كاذب. So we have something called valid and invalid, صادق وكاذب. And all categorical syllogisms have mode and figure. Let's tackle this point in more details. The mode is a series of three letters, A, E, or O. A, E, or I, or O, corresponding to the type of proposition. Because we stated that the argument here, the syllogism, usually consists of three propositions, two premises and one conclusion. But what about the type of the major premise? Is it A, E, I, or O? And then what about the minor premise? Is it A, E, I, or O? And what about the conclusion? Is it A, E, I, O? Then as a conclusion we will have three letters here. Letter for the major premise, letter for the minor premise, and the letter for the conclusion premise. When we collect these three letters together, they indicate the mode of syllogism. They indicate the mode of syllogism. Let's have an example here. When we say all A are B, all A are B, this is major premise. C is an A, this is minor premise. Therefore, C is a B, this is a conclusion. So this all A are B, this is what time? This is A. C is an A, this is A. Therefore, C is B, this is A. So we have three letters here. This is A, or 3A. So the mode of this argument as a whole, the mode of this argument as a whole is A. So the mode of this argument would be A, or 3 A's. Let's have another example concerning the mode of syllogism. When we say no S are P, some S are P, then some S are not P. The first one is E, the second one is I, the third one, the conclusion is O. So the mode of this argument would be EIO, like that. You noted that we have here three letters to indicate the mode. For every syllogistic argument, we have three letters to indicate the mode of the syllogism. Then, what about the figure? This was concerning the mode. What about the figure of syllogism? The figure of syllogism is a number which corresponds to the placement of the two middle terms. You still remember the middle terms in the argument? Let's have this example. When we say all A are B, this is the major premise. C is an A, this is a minor premise. And we have the conclusion, C is a B. We stated that B is the major term and C is the minor term, and A, which is common in the first premise and the second premise, I mean the major premise and the minor premise, A is the middle term. So what about the position or the placement of the middle here? We noted that it is here upper left here, and here lower right. So it is here in the left. In the first one it is in the left, in the second one it is in the right. It is in the left because this is right, this is in the right because this is left. C is left, A is right. A is left, B is right. So we noted that in the first premise A is in the right, in the left, sorry, and the A is in the right in the minor premise. So this placement or this position of the middle terms indicates the figure of the syllogism, and this format is called figure 1. Figure 1. But what about the other formats of the middle terms? Let's tackle this in this. Look at this shape, this from upper to lower here, from left to right. This position or this statement is called 1. But what about the rest of them? Look at these. When we have figure 1, this is the middle term is on the left in premise 1 and on the right in premise 2. Figure 2, this one I mean, this is figure 1 where the middle term is on the left in premise 1 and on the right in premise 2. Figure 2, the middle term is on the right in both premises, right and right here, in the first and the second. That in figure 1 it is left here and right there, so it is like that. In figure 2 both are in the right in the first premise and in the right in the second premise, so it is vertical like this. But in figure 3 the middle term is on the left in both premises, so it is in the left in the first premise and in the left 2 in the second premise, so it is vertical. So we have 2 and 3, they are vertical, but here they are both right, here they are both left. What about figure 4? Figure 4, in figure 4 the middle term is on the right, in the first premise and on the left in premise 2. So we have this shape like this. This is from left to right, vertical left, and right to left like this, from right to left like this. We have another shape like this to represent the figure of syllogism. This figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, and figure 4. So here we have the middle term. This is the middle term in every figure here. So it takes the shape like this, then vertical right, vertical left, then from this is right left. So this is left right, vertical left, then right left. So this is concerning the premises, and these are the conclusion. Okay, so we can also take this diagram to represent the types of figures of syllogism. It seems like, the color flap like this shape, this one like this, that one like this, because this is from left to right, then vertical followed by right left. So it seems like the color flap. To memorize it easily, you can use this shape. But what about the valid and the invalid argument? Valid and invalid argument stated that valid means sadiq and the invalid means kazib. Now we can use some charts to assess when an argument is invalid or valid. Usually we have 15 combinations of mode and figure that are valid from the Boolean standpoint. So we have 15 combinations of valid arguments from the Boolean standpoint. Booleans, this is related to George Bowles. We call these unconditionally valid. So we have 15 unconditionally valid arguments. And we have also 9 arguments formed that only valid from the Aristotelian standpoint. So we have 2 standpoints or points of view. The standpoint of George Poole, and of Aristotle. This is called Boolean standpoint, and this is called Aristotelian standpoint. We have 15 and we have 9. The 15 are unconditionally valid because they are permanently always valid without any conditions. But here we have some conditions for them to be valid. What about these charts? We have here the first table, which represent the 15 combinations of mode and figure that are valid from the Boolean standpoint. Here, for figure 1, we have AAA, EAE, AII, EIO. For figure 2, we have EAE, AEE, EIO, AOO. For figure 3, we have IAI, AII, OAO, EIO. For figure 4, we have AEE, IAI, EIO. These are 15 combinations which are unconditionally, I mean, they are always valid from the Boolean standpoint, no problem. So if you have any argument which has this combination AA, for example, in figure 1 here, so it means that it is valid. Also, if you have, for example, in figure 4, a mode like EIO, so it is valid like that. So these are the 15 valid arguments or forms of argument. We have also the 9 valid, but they are conditionally valid. Conditionally valid because they are only valid if the term listed in the right column here actually exists, because as we stated before, we have Aristotelian standpoint. So these are only valid from the Aristotelian standpoint, where the universal proposition have existential import, and only if the term listed here in the right column here actually exists, I mean, in reality. These are as indicated here in the table for figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, and figure 4. These are valid conditionally as long as the condition here exists. For example, for these, the S should exist. For the second row, M exists. And for the third row, P exists. S means the subject. The subject must exist. Here the middle term must exist. Here the predicate must exist like this. So these are the conditionally valid forms, and these are nine ones. I hope you understood this lecture, and we will have inshallah a lot of training and exercises concerning the mode and the figure, and concerning the relationships between different propositions. Till seeing you inshallah next lecture, good luck, and may Allah protect all of us and protect our beloved country Egypt. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.